merciful. May peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah the Almighty be upon all of you. I am Umair bin Abid, and you're watching Umair Linguistics, the bilingual linguistics channel. So, dear viewers, from this lecture, we are going to start phonetics in detail. I have already made some introductory lectures on phonetics, and this channel is bilingual, so I try to make videos in two languages, each video in two languages separately, one in English and the other is in Urdu, or you can say in Hindi. So today we are going to start phonetics in detail, and actually the source book which we are going to look at is A Course in Phonetics by one of the great phonetician Peter Leedvogt, and the other one is Keith Johnson. And our today's lecture is Articulation and Acoustics. This is chapter 1, and the lecture 1 will be on speech production. So as I have already mentioned that this video is in English, and the same video I have already made in Urdu as well, and I have given the link in the description below. So before we start today's lecture, it is, I think, mandatory for us to know about the authors as well, especially Peter Leedvogt, who was one of the great phonetician, and still his works are very beneficial for us. So first of all, we'll look at the introduction. We'll look at the biography of these two authors. So this is Peter Leedvogt, 1925 to 2006, and he received his PhD from University of Edinburgh in Scotland in 1958. Then he founded the UCLA Phonetics Laboratory, and he was also the director of it. Then he was also the professor of Department of Linguistics there, and his contributions are enormous. Then his phonetics fieldwork, pre-computers. Actually, he worked a lot even then when there were no computers or no instrument, and he visited around the globe and recorded the voices of different languages, even little known languages. Then he also revised the IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet Chart, and he added many new sounds which many of people were unaware. Then in one film, My Fair Lady, his voice can also be heard. The second author, Keith Johnson, he taught, he's still alive, and he taught phonetics in Department of Linguistics at Ohio University, and he is now a professor at Department of Linguistics in University of California, Berkeley, just like Peter Leedvogt. And he is the author of Acoustic and Auditory Phonetics and Quantitative Methods in Linguistics. So this was the short introduction of these two authors. So you must download this book and you must read this book. Actually, I know that many of the native speakers, they sometimes don't need such type of lectures. Even I am a non-native speaker of English, and I cannot speak English as well as a native speaker can, and even I cannot understand maybe sometimes or many times English language as well as a native speaker can understand. But if you are new to some subjects, so sometimes you need the expertise of some people, or those people whose English, for whom English is not their first language. So I hope my lectures will be helpful. So this is the introduction, and now let's start our today's lecture. So what is phonetics? So phonetics is concerned with describing speech, or in other words, phonetics is the study of speech sounds, how we produce these speech sounds, uh, and what is the mechanism of production of speech sounds, how sound waves travel in the in the air, how we perceive. So actually, yeah, we describe three to four types of main phonetics types. For example, auditory phonetics, which deal with how we perceive speech sounds. Then acoustics, which deal with how sound waves travel in the air. And then also sometime also we have, you can say, perceptive as well. Sorry, and articulatory. Auditory and perceptive are actually same, but articulatory is another branch in which we study that how we produce sounds, the whole mechanism. And actually, this lecture will be somehow about articulatory phonetics. So, why phonetics? Why we study phonetics? Why we need to study phonetics? So, there are a lot of reasons. And here I am going to discuss some kinds of phoneticians which work. For example, some phoneticians look at, just like Peter Leitvogt has observed, has studied how sounds are different in different languages. There are many sounds which are available, which are heard in one language but not in other language. For example, the sound th, it is in English but it is not in Arabic. Similarly, th sound, I think also not heard in French as well. Similarly, there are some sounds which are available in Urdu, but actually those sounds are not available in English somehow. So some phoneticians study that how sounds occur in different languages. Then there is another kind of phonetician, which are speech pathologists. So this branch actually closely related to medical, where they deal with those type of people who are unable to speak to, and they have some problems while producing speech. So they treat those people. Then automatic speech recognition or synthesis. So these are actually speech scientists or engineer who work on how we can develop software. You know, and nowadays we have many like OK Google. Then we have Cortana. Then in Apple we have Siri. So these are such type of softwares, such type of systems. So some phoneticians work on this. Pronunciation teacher. So you may be a pronunciation teacher, you want to teach pronunciation to your teachers, even then you have to study phonetics. Then students of phonetics. If you are a student of phonetics, and you want to pursue your career in phonetics, even then you have to study this subject. Then there are some cognitive scientists. Once again, this is somehow related to medical field or psychology, the field of psychology, where they study cognitive processes involved in speaking and listening. That how we speak and how we listen. So what are the processes at that time happening in your brain? Then opera singer. You may be a singer and you have difficulty in pronunciation, in pronouncing some sounds. So even then you need the help of a phonetician. You want to speak a special dialect. For example, in many films, in many movies, you have seen that actors they pronounce sometimes differently, and even for those who are spies, agents, so for them it is very neat. It is their very neat to speak different dialects, to speak different languages, that even they are uh, other people are unable to distinguish that who is the real one. So sometimes even then such type of people need the help of phoneticians. So in all these cases, what is the role of phoneticians? So actually what we have discussed, so you can see that in every field or in every problem, what phoneticians are doing, that they are finding out that what people are doing, how people are pronouncing these sounds, and how they are talking, what are their problems, and how these problems can be solved. Speech production, which is our main point of this lecture. So most sounds actually are the result of movements of tongue and lips. So as we speak, so our two main you can say two main parts in our mouth which are working. These are our tongue and lips. Lips are moving and tongue is also moving. And you can see if you just stop the video and speak one sentence, and you come to know that your tongue is moving very fast. We'll watch a video as well later. And your tongue is moving very fast. Your tongue is making connection with your teeth, with your upper part of mouth, with your back part of mouth, with your hard palatal, with your soft palatal. Sometimes your teeth are making contact with your lower lips. So this is all about how we pronounce and how tongue and lips actually help to make sounds. Just like we produce gestures with sounds, gestures with hands, especially those who are unable to speak, unable to listen. So for them, hands are actually the tool to speak. So just like gestures of hands, lips and tongue also make gestures. But these gestures which we make from tongue and lips, these are audible as well. So making speech gestures audible involves pushing air out of lungs. So actually the main component in pronouncing in producing speech sounds is our respiratory system. Because whenever we speak, we are pushing air out of our lungs. You can observe it by saying any sound and just keep your hand in front of your mouth and speak any sentence, speak any word. You will feel that the air is coming out of your mouth, and sometimes while producing nasal, so sometimes you also uh, stop sound in your mouth and pronounce it through your nose, so through your throat or mouth. And once again, you cannot pronounce sounds or many sounds while breathing in. Sometimes in certain expression we say oh, ah. uh, in such type of sounds we breathe in. Such type of sounds are produced sometimes when we breathe in, but these sounds are very in a, you can say, very in a very low amount, or in a very small amount in any language. And actually no language in the world uh, who is totally rely on breathing in process, where you breathe in and you speak. You cannot speak while you breathing in for a long time. Just these sound, except these sound oh, ah, but these sounds are not actually making any language. So we change noises by the actions of our lip and tongue. For example, with these lip and tongue, sometimes we say ah, sometimes we say ooh, sometimes we say bat, pat, cat. So these different type of sounds which are distinguished just through the action of lips and tongue. How if the tongue and lips are moving differently, so you can say you can observe that therefore we are making different sound. Our tongue and lips are same, but we are moving them in certain directions to produce some sounds. So now we are going to look at an x-ray film of the phrase on top of his deck. And the video which I am going to show you, It is also available on the website, which is given in the book as well. Actually, this website accompanies this book. So this X-ray film, and the person is pronouncing the phrase on top of his deck. So I am going to play it, and you will be able to listen it as well.
On top of his deck, on top of his deck, on top of his deck.
So you can observe that first of all, it is not as visible as you think, but here the matter is that we have to look at that how speedily, how fast our tongue moves, how fast our teeth, our lips move while pronouncing any sound or any word, and sometimes we are unable to observe that how fast it is. So now I'm going to show you some figures as well, and actually these figures are uh, about this phrase, about all the sounds which are produced in this phrase, and these will be 12 frames. And you know, when we divide the video into frames, so it is more visible and we can see each part separately. So let's see the figure. So this is the figure, and just starting from here, and actually this line is the position of the tongue. So you will see that how tongue is changing its position from upward to downward. So this is o mean on, in on. So here is the tongue o, so we can see that the tongue is a bit higher. Then in n, the tongue has a little bit down, because actually when we produce these sounds, our velum, you know, which is the flap, sorry, uvula, which is the flap, actually it comes downwards when we produce nasal sound. So you can see here the tongue is a little bit lower. Then on, then this on the top. So here you can say this th, while and the mouth is a little bit more open, th, and here is the tongue, because tongue touches at a particular position, which we will look at in incoming lectures. On the top, that was on, and this is about top. So here you can say visibly the tongue is a bit lower, and this is the sound ah in American English, on the top, but this sound is pronounced as o in British English. But you can say tongue is a little bit lower here. Then th, and you can say the lips. Just focus on the lip position. Just focus on the lip position. It's very interesting to know. So here in th, the lips distance between lips is this much, and this is actually how much the mouth has opened. But just focus on the vowel o. The mouth is sufficiently open, because we are pronouncing ah, so we are opening mouth quite much. But in top, you can say just a little bit, because when we say p, our lips are open, but only a short distance is there. All right. On the top of, and it is the pronunciation of top, and it is the position of once again in because here it is a sound of on the top of, on the top of. When we say on the top of, so you can you can observe that your mouth will not open, because we are not pronouncing it like completely like of or of. We are pronouncing it quickly of. So the once again mouth is not much open, is because yeah, sometimes h is dropped in fluent speech. Same is happened here, is, and then deck. So you can look at the lips position, the distance between lips. In some sounds the lips are more open, or in other words the mouth is more open. This is sufficiently true to say, uh, and this is sufficiently better to say, rather than say that lips are more open. So in some sound you can say the mouth is more open. Once again here in deck in a sound, lips are mouth is more open, and then k, and then this is k, ck and k. Actually they have because they have divided into frames, so they have provided sufficient information here. So I hope you would have something out some idea about that. Now we are going to look at the mechanism of sounds production. So sound production first of all needs energy, and the all energy comes from our respiratory system when we push air out of lungs, and without pushing air out of lungs we can't produce sounds, as I have mentioned that while breathing in we can't produce sounds. And when we talk, so air from lungs goes up to the windpipe, and technically windpipe also known as trachea, and then after trachea it comes into larynx, which is also called the voice box. And at this point the air must pass between two small muscular folds which are called vocal folds. So these are the four main positions of vocal folds. Mostly we discuss only these two positions, voiced and voiceless. So actually while producing sounds, some sounds are voiceless and some sounds are voiced. So some when a vocal folds are closed as in this position, so actually at that time we are not pronouncing any sounds at all. And even when we eat something, so while you can say while swallowing the food, our vocal folds are also totally closed, so food will not go into the windpipe. But some sounds are voiced, like this sound v. If you just say v, and some sound how when voice sounds are produced, when there are vocal folds are close together but the air is pushing out of the vocal folds and disturbing the vocal folds, so vocal folds vibrate, and in this way sounds are produced which are known as voiced sound, because in these type of sound vocal folds vibrate, like v, similarly like l, r, z, these all sounds are voiced. When vocal folds sometimes we also call them vocal cords, when these are separated apart or a little bit open, so air passes through vocal folds without any disturbance. So in this way the sound which are produced, these are known as voiceless sounds, and we like s, like t, like p, like k, these are all sounds which are voiceless sounds. Sometimes if the vocal folds are completely open, so or more open, in such position we produce some sounds like this which is known as a glottal stop. So these are some positions, and similarly one example of this is also the sound actually what happens that in this position vocal folds we hold them tight but a little bit separated apart, so and this glottal stop, such sounds are produced in this position. You can just identify between the difference between voiced and voiceless sounds by just keeping your finger on your throat at your Adam's apple, the bone which is a little bit outside in your neck. So if you just pronounce this sequence, again and again, even you can listen that these sounds is a little bit you can say a little bit higher or a little bit higher have high frequency. So actually in this way you can also identify the difference between voiced and voiceless sounds by just keeping your finger here and just and interestingly, you will be amazed that both of these sounds are pronouncing from the same place of our mouth. When we make contact of our upper teeth with our lower lip, in this way these sounds are produced, and these are called actually fricatives. But I am not going to tell every name like fricative, stop, plosive, because in incoming lectures we look at all these aspects in detail. So now we are going to look at a passage. So the air passages above the larynx are known as vocal tract. So if you just move above your larynx, so what the place comes, we call it vocal tract, which includes our tongue, our teeth, our lips, our hard palate, soft palatal, uvula. I'll show the picture of all these. And the vocal tract may be divided then into oral tract within mouth and pharynx, and the nasal tract within the nose. So in this way we can divide vocal tract further. I'll just show you the picture after a while. So how nasals are produced. So we have a flap at the back of our mouth, uh, you know, which is hanging a soft piece of muscle which is hanging in our mouth, back of our mouth, you can see it. So when the flap at the back of mouth is lowered, so in this way air does not go through our mouth, but air is out uh, through our nose. For example, if you are just you can say just silent and with your mouth closed you are breathing, so in this position, in this right position, your flap is lowered, and in the same position we produce nasal sounds like m, n, ing, and these are all voice sounds because vocal folds vibrate and air going out through the nose. The parts of vocal tract that can be used to form sounds such as the tongue and lips are called articulators. So tongue, lips, these are called articulators because these produce sounds in the vocal tract. So this is the picture I want to show you, and actually I have taken this picture from a book called named Linguistics for Dummies. So here you can say they have also divided the nasal cavity. This is the nasal cavity. So what will happen, this uvula will be lowered. So when this uvula will be lowered, so when, for example, when it is lowered here, so what will happen, the air which is coming from here will be unable to pass from here, but that air will be passed from nasal cavity, and in this way we'll produce nasal sound like m, n. But when this is not lowered, so at that position our mouth will be open and will produce other sounds which are p, t, k, and other sounds which we'll look at in incoming lectures. So this is the position I just want to show you. So actually this is one of the picture of vocal tract. These are vocal folds, and then this is pharynx, and this is the mouth. So here we have the articulators. This is the tongue. So this is the vocal tract of Peter Ledvogt himself, and he has also here pointed out that this is the oral tract and this is the nasal tract. So nasal tract has been pointed out through dotted lines, and the reason is that we have some soft tissues here actually, and that divide our nasal tract. So sometimes that is actually, we can not say that is it is surely starting from just here or here, so therefore we show it with dotted line. Now look at the speech production mechanism, the summary of actually speech production mechanism. So actually we have four main components in speech production mechanism. And first of all, the air stream. So airstream process includes all the ways of pushing air out that provide the power for speech. So how we are pushing air out of our mouth. So this is called the airstream process. So all the ways, what is mean by all the ways? So as I have mentioned in while I am saying I was discussing that how different noises are produced. So actually the way the air is coming out of mouth decides that what sound is we have been producing. So when we say k, on the other hand we say t, sometimes we say s. So uh, air is coming in every sound, but why every sound is different? Because air is not coming in the same way as in s, and air is coming in the different way in p, but air is coming in the different way is n, air is coming in another way in z. So due to these reasons we are saying that all the ways of pushing air out that provide, and we'll look at these different type of airstream processes in incoming lectures. Then we also say phonation process. So what phonation process is the name given to the actions of vocal folds. So how vocal folds are vibrating, or either they are vibrating or not. On this base and for this process we use the word phonation. And the possibility of airstream going out through the mouth. So uh, is air coming out of the mouth, or in this way we produce sound like v, z, s, t, p, k, or air is coming out through the nose. In this way we produce some nasal sounds, and this is determined, and this process is called oral or oronasal process. If the air is coming out of mouth, so we say it is the oro process or oral process. If air is coming out of nose, in this way we say it is a nasal process. The fourth component is articulatory process. So how the tongue and lips are interacting with other parts of mouth, for example with hard palatal, with teeth, and other parts of the mouth. How tongue is contacting with the mouth and the pharynx. These are the part of articulatory process, which where we see the articulators, how articulators are moving. And it is one of the picture of showing how showing the mechanism, speech mechanism. So here you can say you can see airstream process, and consider these are the lungs. So air is coming from the lungs here. Sorry, actually I just want to zoom in. Sorry. So these are the lungs, this is the airstream process, and air is coming here. And here is it is written phonation process, because here are the vocal folds, and how vocal folds will vibrate, this will be decided here. And then we have the articulatory process, that how the tongue is contacting with the roof of the mouth, or with teeth processes with teeth. And here we have oronasal process. If the air is coming out of mouth, then we say it is oral process, but if the air is coming from now nose here, then we say it is a nasal process. So this is all about today's lecture. I know that I cannot speak fluently. Sometimes even I don't know what words to speak and what are the appropriate words at a particular time. So I apologize for this because I'm not native speakers, but I am working on it. So don't forget to give your feedback, remembering your prayers, and these are the references which I have already told you at the beginning of the lecture. And in next lecture we are going to look at sound waves. So I hope you have understood it. Please don't forget to give your feedback. Remember